Hey, greetings everybody, it's GleeCon here again with another episode of Lore of Warcraft. So, depending on where you look in the timeline, you could argue that the book we just read, Lord of the Clans, sort of falls in this 15 to 18 to 20 year range. We know, well, it's got to be, once you get to 20 years after the Dark Portal, we're now in so 20 years have passed since since the first war. So I guess the timelines that they were saying in the book that we just read, where they said 20 years, that tracks. So that Lord of the Clans book, it could be closer to this. It's hard to say exactly. Like in our last one, it said it was in the 15 years-ish range, depending on the chronologies and the timelines. It probably spread. I mean, obviously, the book itself took place from the time Thrall was an infant till the time he was, I don't know, they don't really talk about exactly how old he is at the end, because they're tracking his age until he's around 14 or so, and then you would assume that a few more years pass. So I think there gets to be a point where it says he's around 18, 19, give or take, somewhere in that ballpark. So he's probably, when he takes over the Horde, really 19, 20 tops. Even though they make him so awesome or whatever, he's young. So the end of that book is really probably happening right around here in this year. It's probably taking us right up to the 20th year because they've done it. They've freed it and they're setting up Warcraft 3. So stay a while and listen to this one. We've got a couple little things to finish off the first chapter of Chronicles 3. This is called Fallen Guardians, and it's one of two entries that happen 18 years after the Dark Portal officially. Across the Great Sea, on Kalimdor's eastern shores, a solitary human wandered the land. Few knew her name. Fewer still knew of her extraordinary tragic past. She was Aegwynn, one of the greatest guardians of Tirisfal who had ever lived. Now, if you think way back, not insanely back, but 20, 30 episodes ago, last time we did Chronicles, we talked about how Aegwynn was the only person that was going to be able to stop maybe like the Lich King, because this ghost of Medivh is watching. He sees the rise of the Lich King's power. He sees the plague being formed, what's going to eventually create the Forsaken, and he knows if he can just get a hold of his mom, she's the only one that could possibly stop it. Long ago, Sargeras had dispatched an avatar infused with a portion of his spirit to Azeroth, hoping to draw Aegwynn into battle. She had met the challenge and faced the demon, its monstrous form wreathed in fire. In what had seemed like a momentous victory, Aegwynn had struck down her foe. The Guardian had not simply triumphed over a Legion agent. No, she had triumphed over the Legion's ruler. Aegwynn never suspected Sargeras' true plans. Just before his avatar fell, he had transferred its spirit into the Guardian. A portion of Sargeras' own power, a portion of his very soul, now lurked within Azeroth's greatest defender. When Aegwynn later gave birth to Medivh and passed on her guardian powers to him, she also transferred Sargeras' spirit to her son. As the years wore on, the Legion's ruler imposed his will on the new guardian and molded him into a weapon. He eventually used Medivh's immense power to create the Dark Portal and bring the Orcish Horde into Azeroth. The terrible war that followed claimed thousands of lives. Medivh was later slain and his guardian power was no longer a threat to Azeroth, but this thought gave Aegwynn little comfort. She blamed herself for everything Medivh had caused. The Horde's invasion, the carnage of the First and Second Wars, and most of all, she blamed herself for robbing her son of a fulfilling life, of a chance to reach his true potential as a force of good. So this all serves so far as a recap, because I guess technically in Chronicles 3, we haven't discussed all of the Medivh storyline, which is important to the beginning lore. So that kind of recaps and gets us up to speed, because there is a little bit of Medivh and Aegwynn's import here in the Third War, I'm assuming. It was during these dark days that Aegwynn had a strange dream. In it, she saw Medivh dressed in a cloak lined with raven feathers. He told Aegwynn that he had a message for the world, and he pleaded for his mother to help bring him back to Azeroth. Aegwynn was initially suspicious of the dream, believing it to be the work of the Legion, but some part of her knew otherwise. She felt Medivh's soul drifting beyond the veil of reality, and she sensed that it was free of Sargeras' touch. This was her chance to make up for her failures to both Azeroth and her son. Aegwynn called on what little magical powers she had left and sought out Medivh's spirit. Months passed without results, but she stubbornly refused to give up. She searched for magical artifacts to help her with the summoning. The quest to bring her son into the world became an obsession. The work was hard, but it was also fulfilling. For the first time in years, Aegwynn had a purpose. She felt like her old self again. Aegwynn finally succeeded in summoning Medivh to Azeroth. A ghostly form took shape before her. Just like in her dream, he wore a robe lined with raven feathers. The moment Aegwynn looked her son in the eyes, she knew her intuitions had been right. Medivh was free of Sargeras' influence. The reunion between mother and son was a somber affair. Aegwynn apologized for everything that had happened, and Medivh was quick to forgive her. He knew they were both victims of Sargeras. He also knew that now was not the time to dwell on the past. Medivh told Aegwynn that while his spirit was wandering beyond the physical realm, he had witnessed many things. His vast power had allowed him to glimpse into the twisting nether and touch the minds of the Legion's demons. From them he had learned of the Lich King and the Plague of Undeath. He had also learned what the Legion was planning after this affliction had weakened the world. In the War of the Ancients, the Legion had tried harnessing a fount of magic called the Well of Eternity to bring the demons to Azeroth. By using its energies, they had nearly created a gateway into the world for Sargeras himself. Their plans had failed, and the Well of Eternity had been destroyed. However, another fount of magic existed. This second Well of Eternity was nestled atop Mount Hyjal, protected by the enormous world tree Nordrassil. With the fount, the Legion could finish what it had started. It could create a portal through which Sargeras and the full might of his armies could invade Azeroth. Aegwynn urged her son to use his guardian powers against the Legion, but Medivh had other ideas. His corruption had taught him the dangers of relying on a single guardian to protect the world. The possibility of that individual being turned to evil was too great. No, the age of guardians was over. If the world's kingdoms were to survive the coming storm, they would have to unite and protect Azeroth themselves. Medivh vowed to act as a catalyst for unity. He would travel the world and warn its inhabitants of the Legion's plans, unifying them in purpose. Aegwynn longed to join her son's quest, but she was in no condition to do so. The summoning spell had pushed her to the edge of death. In the moments after the spell had finished, her body had begun to age and become frail. It would take her years to recover. Even then, she would never be as youthful or as powerful as she had once been. Medivh was on his own, and time was against him. The Plague of Undeath was enveloping Lordaeron. Alright, so we had a recap here, and then Medivh, kind of as a ghost, has been brought back, and he wants to unite all the peoples on Azeroth to fight the Legion, to stop, in the short term, the Lich King and the Plague of Undeath, and in the long term, them coming forward through the Well of Eternity on Mount Hyjal and retaking the land. So how is that going to look? I don't know. We'll find out. I'm sure in the future we've got one more little event that's going to happen around the same time as this. So this episode is in the pipe 5x5. I thank everybody so much for watching and listening, and I will see you next time on Lore of Warcraft.